Okay, let's go through the project here and give you a little rundown on what everything is. So starting at the top here, this Jabber tutorial is our main project directory. We have a .idea directory. This is if you're working in IntelliJ IDEA or another JetBrains IDE. So other IDEs you could use are like WebStorm or probably PyCharm would work completely fine in this tutorial, no problem if you just want to follow along exactly as I have here. Node modules stores all our npm package data. The source directory is where we're going to do our actual work. It has an index.html file, which is where we're going to build our page on. And inside of it, we have a styles directory, which has a couple of Sass files already pre-wrote for us. We'll get more into this in the future. And then our scripts directory has a simple TypeScript file that imports our lazy sizes and imports our Bootstrap JavaScript. So we're not going to be doing any actual JavaScript writing in this particular course, but I have it already set up to import the stuff we actually need, and you won't actually have to touch this. Okay. The next file here is a browser list RC file, and this is just for post CSS module that we have installed. Basically, it just says prefix for the last two versions with of any browser with greater than 0.5% market share. Okay, nothing you really have to worry about. Editor config. This file should automatically have your editor working in a certain way. So, for example, your editor should automatically use a space for indents, and the indent size should be 4. And what that means is so when you press a tab, this should be made up of 4 spaces. And also has here that your end of line, your line ending should be line feed. We talked about this in the Git section. We always want all our files to be LF, okay? And it just says that your file character set should be UTF-8, which is pretty normal. That's exactly what we want. And we always want to be trimming our trailing space, and we want to insert a final new line, true. So this is just formatting things. I'm just going to undo to make that go away. So one thing that I just wanted to stop here real quick for was that this line feed thing is like super important. And so if you're working in an IntelliJ product, I would go to my settings, and then I'd go to code styles here, and I would set the line separator to Unix and Mac OS /N. That's the same thing as LF. And I guess if you want other things to set up, I have hard wrap set at 120. That's what this sideline is for 120 characters. And the reason for that is so that I can have my projects open here and I can see all my files, and then I could have like a database open on this side, and I still have like plenty of room to see all my code. So I try to keep everything in between these two lines. Okay. We have a git ignore file, and it's just git ignore just means just don't include these files in Git. A gulp file. We're not going to really touch on this, but gulp is a JavaScript task runner. I use it for like writing certain production level scripts that I need for whatever project I'm working on. There's just some basic ones in here. We're not going to actually use this in this course or really cover it. Take a look at it at your own leisure. License. The license of the project, this falls under the MIT license. It's completely free of charge. You can use it however you want in any kind of project, and it doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to, credit me or whatever. This is our package.json file. So every project that runs on node.js is going to have a package.json file, and it's pretty straightforward. We have the name of our project. We're saying that type is a module that's important for writing certain kinds of JavaScript. Up here are scripts. We're going to get into these in the next video, so I'm not going to cover them, but they're basically pre-built commands that you can run that run other commands. And lastly, we have our dev dependencies, and these are just all the packages that we had installed when you ran npm install. It looks inside this package.json file, and it will install all these packages with these versions that we have specified here. The package.lock file is just saying what packages should be installed. README, pretty straightforward. README. ts.config. This is for TypeScript. This is for this scripts thing here. We're not going to cover this in this video. This just makes sure that everything can install. This is the same stuff, same settings I would use in production. Generally, I work in React, so JSX is React. And last but not least, we have two Webpack files. So Webpack essentially is a bundler and kind of a task runner. So you can have it like compile all your Sass code. You can have it minify code. You can have it do all these different kind of things. It even has a development web server we can spin up and use to view our project. And we can have hot reloads. So when we edit our files, it automatically recompiles everything. So it really does everything for both development and production that you want to do in order to create a complete web application. So if you're really looking to get into web development, I highly, highly recommend that you go to Webpack. And so instead of the README here, I have a link to Webpack, and here you go. And the documentation is, there's a lot of documentation to go through. So just a quick rundown of the Webpack that we're using. We're using this HTML bundler Webpack plugin. And so what that allows us to do is, typically you can't actually do this in HTML. So we're linking to an index.scss file. So an SCSS file is a Sass file, which gets compiled into a CSS file, and then it would be index.css. And so this Webpack plugin basically allows us to do something like this, and it'll automatically replace the names when we actually compile the files, which is pretty cool. And we can do the same thing with the TypeScript file here. So typically you can't just link to a TypeScript file. Your browser can't read TypeScript. It can only read JavaScript. TypeScript gets compiled into JavaScript. And so this is just a tag that says, hey, this file goes to this. And when you compile it, just replace it. So that's pretty cool. And other than that, yeah, we have a basic web server that's going to fire up on port 8080 here, which is like the standard secondary port for HTTP and typically what you use when you're working locally. And then we just have like a bunch of directories set up already for the project in order to load the proper assets how we need them loaded. And then there's a production version of this, which is just a more optimized compilation version that you would use if you were making a production build based on this setup. So I know that was kind of quick, but most of this we're not going to really worry that much about in this tutorial, and you're free to explore at your own whim. So let's get going in the next tutorial.